Okay, so in this video, I'm going to show you a way to do a Photoshop project where we're going to turn a color photo into a black and white image and then let some color shine through. At the beginning of photography, when there was just black and white photography, the first way that color was added to photographs was through painting color over grayscale. Now we've come such a long way from there with the invention of color photography. That was no longer needed. So what we're going to do in this project, and I have a couple videos on adding color to black and white photographs, we're going to, with Photoshop, go back a little bit, not quite, to that more antique photography, but in a much more digital, modern type of way. So here it goes. The first way we can go about doing this, we start with this image. And first thing I might want to do is I may want to crop it. Although I think that it's pretty strong. So I'm going to leave this one as it is. Now, what we can see is that underneath we have a layer. First thing I want to do is I want to duplicate this layer. So I'm going to come on up. I'm going to say layer, duplicate layer. I'm going to say OK. And now I have a copy of this first layer. So I am going to name this one. I can say Liam. Okay, now, as you can see, this background layer is locked. So first thing that I want to do is I'm going to come on in and I am going to convert this image to a black and white image. So I can come on over to here and I can come to my adjustments layer, image adjustments, and I can come to black and white. And there we have it. So we can come on in and we can work with how this is all distributed. We can work with the yellows a little bit. Lighten up some of those greens. Okay, so I hit OK, and now I have a black and white image. Now, let's say that I really just want this green to come through. How do I just get this green to come through? Well, what I can do, because this layer is underneath, I can come on in and I can grab my eraser tool. So I want to grab my eraser tool. Now, when we look at the eraser tool, we're going to see that we have the eraser, the magic erase, the background eraser, and the magic eraser. We're just going to go with the eraser tool. Now, once we get the eraser tool, we're going to see that up on on this panel right here, okay, right up in here, we have these options too. Now, when we look at the eraser, we have a bunch of choices, but the two main ones, we have the size and the hardness. Now, the size is the amount of pixels. So let's look, as I put this up, we can see we have more pixels. And as I put it down, less pixels. Okay. Hardness, if we lower the hardness, it will have much more of like an airbrush type of feel. But for this, I'm going to put the hardness up. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to come on in and I'm going to zoom it on in. And I can come on in and I can erase and I can see that the green will show through. So what I'm doing is I'm erasing and letting the green come through. Let me put this up for my pixels so I could come in and, go a little bit bigger into some of these bigger areas. And then this is the kind of thing too that as we get closer, we're going to really zoom it on in and get exactly what we want. So a lot of times when you're working in Photoshop, you're going to find yourself working super close in. So here I am, nice and close, have my eraser, and I might even put this down to about 5 pixels and even come in just a little bit closer. So we'll often find that we're coming in and working really, really close. Okay, so now I want to go over something. Let's say that you do something and you're not wild about it. Well, what you want to do is you want to open and back up the history. So come Window, History. Now, Photoshop is and the history is always a good one to have right up in this little panel. Photoshop is a very memory intensive program, so it's only going to save, I think it's about 25 of these, and then it will change it, but you can always go back So let's say that I said, oh, I didn't like what I did. I could just go back 3 steps, come back in, and start erasing. So I'm going to pause this and erase this and then open it back up so you can see my image. Okay, so I just want to give you a sense of how I'm working. So I'm coming in and I'm, getting the edge here. I think the edge is always the hardest part. Once you get the edge, then you're in pretty good shape. So I'm moving around. I have my eraser. Whoosh, just zooming in nice and close. Love the hand. The shortcut for the hand is H. Moving right along with the H. Coming back to the A. Just really getting this edge. And what you'll see, when you're really close, you can really see exactly what you're getting. But, it's not that big of a deal. Like I can see that I got a couple of those pixels with the skin. Don't think it'll be that big of a deal when I'm zoomed back out. Right now I'm zoomed into 300%. I can tell I'm zoomed into 300% right up in here. So I want to grab my H again, moving all along, my E for my eraser. Again, learning some keyboard shortcuts as you're working. Makes your process nice and close. Now, and if you ever are wondering, what are those keyboard shortcuts? Well, if you hover around the tools, you'll see the letters. The letters will tell you. Now, another thing that we want to talk about as I work with Photoshop here, and I'll turn it back off and work a little bit more. Up now, look, I didn't really like what I just did, so I feel like I got a little too much. I'm going to up. That's the problem, okay? So when we come to the history, what you'll find is the history, and take a look at the history as I work. Once I lift up and release my mouse, see how that's a new little eraser thing? Now, if I come in again, it's creating another new one. Actually, when I come and grab the hand, I think that it should. Okay. All right, so that's the story with the history tool. Okay, now another thing with the history tool too, just to talk about this window a little bit more, you can take a snapshot of your image. So you could say, okay, I want to take a snapshot of it. And then what happens is at the very beginning, you can very easily just go back to that. So that's a good idea. If you get to a place and you want to keep it there, take a snapshot of it because then you can easily go back. Now, one thing to note is that when you close your files, your history is not saved with your file. It is not saved with your file. So Photoshop very much is based on pixels, as we can see, and what we're doing is we're coming in and we are manipulating, working with pixels, erasing, changing the color of, doing all kinds of fun stuff. Again, learning keyboard shortcuts is the way to go. Come on in here. Again, a lot of times too, maybe we'll even zoom in just a little bit more. Sometimes we're just looking, I've quite often worked in Photoshop where all I'm doing is really just looking at difference in color of pixels. All right, now let's say I wanted to get that little area up in there. Well, if I could just come on in, make this bigger, and then come in and just very easily, see how easy it is then to get this area. All right, I'm going to zoom back out. You can see we're starting to get this. So create this sense of emphasis on him. I'm going to hit pause, finish it up, and show you where I am. Now again, you can see just how, I said I was going to hit pause, but you can see just how easy it is now to come in and work with the larger eraser and not worry so much about the edge here. Now again, that's where it really starts to get tricky though, is as we're working and we're coming in closer to the edge. Turn this off, there's that versus that. Hit pause, finish doing this erasing, and then I'll turn this back on so you can see the end result. Okay, so there we can see now we have the background. We have black and white. Now if I turn this off, you'll see that what I've done is I've erased that. Now, whenever you see this grid behind, it's actually showing this a transparency grid. So there we have it. Now, maybe I want to come in and kind of lighten this background up a little bit. Well, I can do that also with my burn tools, or I could come in, maybe I want to come in and lighten up his hair. So let's say I'm going to zoom it on in here. And there's just so, it's really dark back in here. So let's come on in and let's grab our dodge and our burn tools. Let's grab our dodge and let's go to our shadows and let's up this up, up, up. Maybe even up a little bit bigger. Too big. You know, what we're going to find most times is that these are going to be much more subtle. Okay, so that's what we want to look at. We can come back in and we want to make this just subtle. I'm going to lower the exposure to about 20 in the 20s. Come in and just kind of lighten this up just a little bit. Gonna have it just at 20 because I don't want it to be too crazy. We can see as we go back in what begins to happen here, and maybe even coming into his hair a little bit. Let's actually come into midtones. All right, and there we go. So we can see it's just this more of a subtle difference. And again, we don't want to overdo things, but this kind of lightens it all up a little bit. Let's lighten up that little ear a little bit. Maybe even just a little bit of this, so just so he stands out a little bit more. And there we have it, with the dodge and the burn, creating a more finished composition. So I'll leave it like that. Thanks so much.